Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is always an exciting time of year, a time to refresh, maybe have some New Year's resolutions, pick a new pan that palette, and finally move on from the giant behemoth that I tried to pan last year. If you missed my 2023 Pan That Palette finale, I'll load it up in the cards. But if you missed it, I actually didn't finish the palette last year. I have 3 brown shades that I still need to kind of sort of carry over into this year until they're panned. And then I'll consider it done and finally moving that palette out from my everyday makeup drawer where it's been forever. But I am super excited to move on, at least in part, to this year's Pan That Palette. So, like the title says, we are finally panning the Sweet Peach palette. And I have quite a bit of backstory as to why this palette and why this palette now. So when this palette first came out, it kind of broke the internet. It was one of those big palette releases where everyone was super excited. It was just like, oh my god, no one had put these shades together in this way, and it smells nice, and the packaging is beautiful, and it had the marketing and everything. It was like the social media darling of, when did it come out? 2016, 2017? It was the it palette. But back then, I was broke and I could not afford the palette. So I didn't actually buy the palette until, I want to say like 2018 or 2019 is when I actually got my hands on it. And I love the palette. It's been like one of my go-to palettes for the past few years. It is ranked consistently in my favorites videos, and I talk about this pretty often if you've been to my channel for a little bit. Now, this is the original palette that I owned, and you can see I completely use up the shade Luscious. I actually finished this in a Petty Project pan a little while ago. I have pan in the shade Peaches and Cream down here, and then the rest show just kind of some moderate wear. Now, part of me was not afraid, or finally worked up the courage to finish up the shade Luscious because it was my favorite shade. I loved that shade to pieces. And I was afraid of using it up because, like, I loved it so much. And I always, like, my reasoning was, if I like it that much, I can always buy it again, right? I could always go out and pick it up. The palette had been part of Too Faced's line for so long, and it didn't matter. I could always go get another palette, right? Until I couldn't. So I don't know if it was this year or if I just noticed it this year, but Too Faced has discontinued this palette. And I panicked. I panicked so much that I, panic bought 2 of the palettes off of Poshmark. So I have this one, and I have this one. I've never done this before, ever. This, I don't know what happened. Like, I was just so, like, I think I finally went to go rebuy the palette because I was like, you know, it's been enough time. I really want to have that shade Luscious back again. And I looked on the Too Faced website. It wasn't there. Looked on Ulta. It wasn't there. Looked at Sephora. It wasn't there. And I was like, oh God, what happened? So because I panic bought 2 full-ass palettes, it's time. I need to pan one of these because it's ridiculous. And the one I'm going to pan, it's not the one that I already have 2 pans in. No. We're going to use one of the new ones. So I am starting off this year fresh. We are going to pan the Sweet Peach palette. And this isn't just going to be a hit pan in every shade. I am going back to the basics of Pan That Palette. I'm going to use up this entire palette this year. I have from today, January 1st, all the way to December 31st to finish this palette. And considering my track record, I don't think, you know what, maybe I shouldn't jinx myself. I think I can do it. I'm pretty sure I can do it, though I have not spent a whole lot of time with Too Faced shadows in a long time, which is another reason why I wanted to do this. If you've seen through my past Pan That palettes, I try to pick a new brand for every year, and I try to alternate between like more affordable palettes, more higher end palettes, and then more mid-range palettes. So last year I did a more affordable Morphe palette. The year before I did 2 palettes, one mid-range, one more affordable, ColourPop and Urban Decay. The year before that was Natasha Denona, and so on and so forth. So it just felt like in the list of brands that I wanted to try and pan, because nothing helps me learn more about a brand, about a formula, than spending an entire year with one of their products. And it's time for Too Faced to get their turn. And also, I love the way it smells. I love the gimmick. It's delightful and nostalgic. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it this year. This year will be full of tutorials. I want to recreate one of my favorite tutorials with this palette that no longer exists on YouTube because unfortunately the creator took it down. So I want to do that tutorial. I want to have a ton of tutorials. I want to have a ton of looks in my updates. I want to get back to like the original spirit of the Pan That palette. And I think this is gonna be a good year. I've got a good feeling about this year. So I hope you guys are excited along with me. And if you have this palette, please let me know down below if you're excited to follow along as well. So that is it for this intro. We've got a pretty basic palette, a basic goal, and I'm hoping for a basic 24. I feel like 23 was so crazy in both good and bad ways that I would like a very calm 24. a very calm and basic, like this palette. Is that silly? I don't know. Thank you guys for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.